Thanks again for joining us at today's Ag and Food Policy Summit. Going to convene now kind of the last leg of the event here, the afternoon sessions. And kicking off our afternoon sessions is a speaker many of you know and will have heard many, many times, that of course being Senate Ag Committee Ranking Member John Boozman. He was unable to join us in person today, but we did have a chance to speak with him last week. But he is currently the Senate Ag Committee's ranking member. It's a position that enables him to play a key role in influencing policy that relates to the agriculture economy, nutrition programs, and quality of life in rural America. He graduated from the Southern College of Optometry in 1977. He then entered private practice that same year, co-founding a family business with his brother to ultimately become a major eye care provider to Northwest Arkansas. Please join me in directing your attention to the screens to catch our conversation with Senator Boozman.
Senator Boozman, thanks so much for joining us.
No, thank you so much for having me, as always.
So I want to start off with our first question here, and it's one that will include a data point that I'm sure you've heard many, many times, the broad bipartisan support that the last Farm Bill received on the Senate floor when it came to final passage. It's a number that was incredible achievement for the negotiators of that legislation. And it's one that I'm sure this bill and others that came after it will, potentially be measured up against. But in terms of the broader concept, maybe not of meeting that number, but of meeting the concept of bipartisanship, what do you think is the biggest threats to bipartisanship facing the United States Senate in the upcoming Farm Bill process?
Well, Farm Bills don't get done unless they are bipartisan. And the things that usually derail them, it's not Democrats and Republicans. It's regions of the country. Southern agriculture is different than the I's, Illinois, Iowa, Indiana. The Great Plains are different. California is very different. They can grow anything, but export a lot. Most of the time don't have a lot of water. So you got to get all of that straight. And then the different commodities. Our specialty crops need things, the traditional row crops. So it's working with all of those things and making sure that it's not a one-size-fits-all. So I think that's the biggest area, is not so much Democrats and Republicans. That has to do with what I just described, has to do with the agriculture part, which is probably only about 18% now of the entire bill. So 82% of it is nutrition. And it's going to be a challenge, getting all of that sorted out, which it is every year. And so those are our challenges. My goal is to get more votes than Senator Roberts and Senator Stabenow did on the last Farm Bill, which is going to be difficult. They did a tremendous job, and the same was true in the House. I think they had a record number of votes there also.
We have seen recently a number of farm organizations, about 400, sent a letter to Budget Committee leaders asking for what they called sufficient resources to write the next Farm Bill for you and your colleagues. I guess, can I ask for the Senator Boozman definition of sufficient or adequate? What do you think is a good funding level for this next bill?
Well, we're going to have to figure that out. Sufficient, adequate is what it's going to take to make sure that we allow our farmers to have the backstops that they need, the safety net in place, so that they can go forward and continue to do the tremendous job that they do. Combined with that are the conservation things, which also our farmers need, especially today, because technology is going to lead the way. That's the thing I think that's going to continue to make us so productive, and with input costs being what they are, make it such that we can get that down to the lowest level possible. Research is a big component, so don't really know what it's going to be. We thought that the last Farm Bill was going to be about $867 billion. That's what it scored to. It's actually scoring now. We're spending about $1.5 trillion. Almost all of that is nutrition increase. And so the farm safety nets have really not received any money with all of these outpourings of infusion of cash into farm programs. Almost all of that has been nutrition, it's been conservation. So we want to make sure that the safety nets, traditional farming, our specialty crops are well represented, and they get what they need, or we're not going to have the affordable, safe food that we've enjoyed so much as a nation, and I guess us supplying the world.
So keeping in mind then that it's maybe hard to put an exact dollar figure on sufficiency at this point, is the existing baseline going to be enough for you and your colleagues, or is it time for the agriculture committees to pursue an increase in the funding pool for the Farm Bill?
Well, we're looking really hard to see what the safety nets need to look like, crop insurance expense, R-Ark, PLC, all of those kind of things. Conservation, there's been a lot of money allocated to that. So I'm not really sure about a figure, to be honest with you, but I know that we're working with Senator Stabenow. She's concerned about this too. We're going to work in earnest. I think that people really do understand in Congress, and we've done a good job in Congress educating members as to how important the Farm Bill is. And it's not, it's not just about farmers, it's about rural America. So in Arkansas, it's 25% of our economy. That's true in Ohio, it's true in Michigan. It's probably 40% in North Dakota. The list goes on and on. I mean, this is the major economic driver of most of our states. But when you get outside of any town of any size of those states, it's probably 85 or 90%. In my opening statement to Secretary Vilsack, I talked about the fact that we'd lost, out of 75 counties, 53 of them had lost population. I think over half of the counties in America, 50 some odd percent, had lost population. So big thing, you start losing your population base, and then you lose those turnback dollars. And so rural America, the Farm Bill is so vital to protecting not only our farm community, but rural America in general.
As we look at potential funding, maybe kind of on a title by title basis, you mentioned conservation was able to get quite an infusion of capital in the Inflation Reduction Act. But outside of that title, is it potentially, or you mentioned commodity programs, you'll need to figure out what the level of support needs to be, but is a kind of title by title set of increases potentially in order?
I think it's a title by title, looking at the dollars that we're spending now and then what we need, to get to where we need to go. I do think that we're going to need significant more dollars regarding Title I, the crop insurance, R-Ark, PLC, those kind of programs.
It's very good. So
and the reason being is that, when you look at the input cost that we have now, whether it's fertilizer, whether it's transportation, the list goes on and on, equipment versus commodity prices. Commodity prices have gone up, but not in relation to those input costs. And as we all know, in farm country, input costs go up. Input costs go up, commodity prices go up and then come down. Input costs never go down. So it's just, we've got to get the adequate protections, or we simply aren't going to have any farmers.
Mm-hmm. So your conversation with Secretary Vilsack at the recent Senate Ag hearing, I was watching that with great interest as the two of you seem to go back and forth on the definition of technical assistance versus fishing expedition, and I'll leave that to the two of you to fully define. But I will ask you, as you sit here right now in mid-March, do you have the information from the department that you need to write the provisions you would like to write in the upcoming Farm Bill, or are there still information gaps and still pending requests in that area?
No, we have about 50 outstanding requests, and I've got a lot of respect for Secretary Vilsack. He works very hard. He's got all the experience in the world, but we do have, and it's not just me, it's members on our side of the aisle and then also on the other side of the aisle. So what I asked was that after the hearing was over, we visited, and he asked me to look and make sure, that our questions were concise and things like that. I told him I'd be glad to do that, but that he needed to look on the other end, because if you're trying to introduce a bill, you've got a good idea or a bad idea, whatever the idea is, and you want to transfer that into a bill, you need the technical assistance from USDA. And I feel like that's been lagging. And then just answering simple questions. So they've got a lot going on over there, but it is important because as we go further into this, Senator Stabenow and I working together, and we will work together, we're going to need that information very quickly so that we can make the decisions that we need to put our thoughts actually into legislative text.
Mm-hmm. One of the important pieces of legislative text will obviously be the nutrition title coming up here in this upcoming farm bill. Already seeing, some battle lines of sorts get drawn on that subject, especially on the issue of work requirements. We have seen legislation dropped in the House to strengthen work requirements, kind of hearkening back to the language in the original 2018 House bill. I wonder, what do you assess as the role of the nutrition title in this upcoming farm bill? Is it something that you might need to stay a bit of a hands-off of in order to maintain bipartisan support and use Democratic help to get it across the finish line? Or do you think that you and your fellow Republicans will be able to pursue some reforms and potentially reforms maybe even on the benefit side in order to make the program last a little bit longer, maybe be a little bit more sustainable? Or do you just need to stay hands-off?
No, we don't need to stay hands-off. We need to look at it and make sure we're spending a lot of money. We want to make sure that those dollars are making a difference. One of my concerns has been the Thrifty Food Program that, we've talked a lot about to USDA. And that was a situation where they used what was supposed to be a budget neutral update of the Thrifty Food Program, the basket of food that they use for the SNAP benefits. That was scored at $0. It turned out to actually cost $300 billion, which is a massive amount of money. My concern there is that with them, and really we're talking about 2 or 3 people making that decision, no input from Congress as to, spending that amount of money. And so my concern is that crowds out our ability to work on some of the other nutrition components. There is a finite amount of money. And I can say this in the sense I've got a good track record of really, I believe very strongly in the nutrition programs. Senator Stabenow and I did several things in the last Congress, and it was a difficult Congress to get things done, working together, finding the offsets and things that we needed. And one of those really made a huge difference regarding the transition from the school nutrition programs that work very, very well into the summer. The transition into the summer is not as good as it should be. And we were able to put some things in place to smooth that transition. So we've proven we can do it. I'm open to looking. I'm very concerned now. If you look at the swelling of the food banks, I've talked to our smallest food banks and small churches and other entities to our very largest. I've talked to people in Arkansas. I've talked to people throughout the country. What they're saying is a massive influx. The reason being is that we have a lot of seniors that are on fixed incomes, basically living on Social Security or a little bit more, and they're getting crushed by inflation, not just food inflation, inflation in general. They just don't have the money. And then you've got the working poor down at the other end that are struggling. They just can't quite make it every month. So it's a real thing. So I'm not saying exactly what we do, but I'm certainly open to looking at it. And there's probably some areas that we need to plus up. There's other areas that we probably need to reduce, but it is an area that Congress is going to address and make sure that aspect of the Farm Bill is taken care of.
Want to wrap up on one last conversation here, Senator, and that, of course, being the foreign farmland ownership conversation. It's one that's been, a kind of a major issue amongst many folks, particularly on your side of the aisle. Wondering, do you think this is a matter that's getting its proper level attention? Is it overblown? How do you assess kind of the issue of foreign farmland ownership, USDA's role in it, and Congress's role headed into this next farm bill?
Well, it's something that I think it really is something that both sides are concerned about. I don't think it's really a partisan issue. I'm out and about. I've had all kinds of listening sessions, both with Senator Stabenow and then out and about Arkansas and other places. But that's one of the things that invariably comes up at listening sessions. People are concerned about foreign land ownership, particularly by the Chinese and the North Koreans and Iranians, things like that. So what I'd like to do, and I've talked to the chairwoman about this, is actually having a hearing. You can't really solve a problem till you understand the extent of it. Nobody's really given me good answers as to what are we talking about? Are we talking about a little bit? Are we talking about a whole bunch? And so just to have a good hearing, flush those things out. As Secretary Vilsack, somebody asked him this question at our hearing with him. And his comment was, certainly land that's being bought around military bases and things like that, then, we need to do something about that. But we need to find out what's going on with the other. To be honest, my major concern is certainly we need to make sure this is not a problem with foreign ownership. My other concern is ownership by hedge funds that are just buying the land as a source of, in this high inflationary time, just as a source of value, like gold. You accumulate it, they know the value is not going to go down. It's a safe place to park money, but they don't really care if it's producing anything. And if it is, those dollars are going out of the local community to wherever that hedge fund is located. So I think that's certainly as big a problem and maybe becoming a major problem that we need to look into also.
So no shortage of issues for you and your colleagues to sort out headed into this next.
For you to report on.
Yes, it's job security for folks like me. And I suppose I could really put you on the hot seat and ask you to finish or complete this sentence. The next farm bill will be signed in blank month of blank year.
Can't give you the month, but I really feel very strongly we're going to get it done this year. I was in the House for 9 years. I've got lots of friends over there that are kind of running the place now on both sides. There seems to be a real commitment. Don't really know how we're going to get it done, but this is true of all farm bills. But I think there's a real commitment on both sides to get it done. And then certainly I'm very much feeling that in the Senate. So it's just a matter of working out the details, and that's going to take a lot of work, but we're going to get there. My message to agriculture is they need to stick together. We need a farm bill, and we need to come up with something that we all can live with. Again, not a one-size-fits-all. My red lines on the farm bill is we're not going to hook the commodity programs, the commodity safety nets, of all the different varieties. We're not going to hook that with you being climate smart enough or you don't get to participate, those kind of things.
Senator Boozman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, our thanks once again to Senator Boozman for taking time out of his schedule and indulging me with some of my questions, and I really appreciate the perspectives that he offered. Going to ask for some perspectives from all of you with one last Slido question before we dive into our next panel. So grab your phones, your iPads, your laptops, whatever you're using to participate in our Slido polls. Asking all of you for the last time today, is the government spending too much, too little, or the right amount on climate-related agriculture concerns? Once again, is the government spending too much, too little, or perhaps the right amount on climate-related agriculture concerns? As we await the results to appear here. Well, it appears that we're working on getting these things visualized. Who's brave enough to shout out their answer? Very good. Well, in the interest of time, we'll keep the conversation moving here, and we will work our way ahead, and we'll have to let you know the results that we found on that at a later date. But we will go ahead and convene our next panel. I will leave you in the capable moderating hands of the legendary Jeff Nally. But before we do that, a video from Gold sponsor Bayer.
At Bayer, we know possibility grows from the seed of a vision. That you can start small and still reach big dreams. That we can nurture the future in our schools to create innovations down the road. That rural communities aren't just farms, but all the people they feed. That's why Bayer partners with farmers to protect those ideas. Because together, we're tending tomorrow's harvest.